The sky above the alien capital was burning. Broken ships fell like dying stars, trailing fire across the dark red clouds. Smoke covered the towers of silver crystal, and the air smelled of metal and ash. The war had reached the royal city, and everyone knew this battle would decide everything. In the center of the ruined plaza stood one figure. He was tall, silent, and covered in black combat armor from head to toe. Not a single part of his skin could be seen. His helmet had no clear visor, only a thin line of blue light where his eyes should be. Around him, alien soldiers lay defeated, their glowing weapons broken beside them. He did not move. He did not celebrate. He simply stood there as if he had always been standing. High above, on a white balcony carved from living stone, the alien princess watched him. Her people called him the human weapon. They said he never removed his helmet. They said no one had ever seen his face. Some believed his armor was empty and that only a machine lived inside it. Others believed he was badly wounded long ago and hid scars too terrible to see. The princess did not believe rumors. She believed in answers. The palace gates opened slowly behind the armored warrior. Alien guards stepped forward with caution, their spears shaking slightly in their hands. Even after winning the battle, he did not attack them. He allowed himself to be escorted inside the palace. Whispers followed him through the long crystal halls. That is the human, the silent one, the one who feels no fear. Inside the royal throne chamber, golden lights floated in the air like small suns. The princess sat on her throne, calm but curious. She had studied humans for years. She knew they were emotional, loud, and proud. But this one was different. He showed no anger, no pride, no emotion at all. The guards stopped him at the center of the room. The hall was silent except for the faint hum of his armor systems. The princess leaned forward slightly. "Remove your helmet," she said clearly. The words echoed across the chamber. Every noble present turned to look at him. This was the moment no one had ever seen. The human did not move. His helmet tilted slightly toward the throne. "My armor is not meant to be removed," he said, his voice filtered and calm. The nobles began whispering again. "He refuses a royal command. Perhaps he hides weakness. Perhaps he is not fully human." The princess raised her hand, and silence returned. "You stand in my court," she said, her tone steady. "You fought for this city, but you hide your face as if you do not trust us." He remained still. Trust. It was a simple word, but heavy with meaning. The princess studied him carefully. There were scratches across his armor, and a long crack ran across the side of his helmet. The blue light behind the visor flickered once, very softly. She noticed it. "You are damaged," she said quietly. "That is not your concern," he replied. For a moment, something changed in her eyes. Not anger, not fear, curiosity. "Tomorrow," she said slowly, "you will stand before me again without weapons, without guards, and without your helmet." The nobles gasped quietly. It was not only a request. It was a command. The human stood in silence for several seconds. The entire hall waited for his answer. Finally, he spoke. "If I remove it," he said softly, "your world will not see me the same way again." A chill passed through the room. The princess did not look away. "Then perhaps it is time we see the truth," she replied. He said nothing more. The guards escorted him out of the chamber. As he walked through the palace corridors, the crack on his helmet widened just a little more. Inside the armor, hidden from everyone, warning signals flashed across a dark internal display. Heart rate unstable. Energy core strain detected. Containment seal at 92%. He ignored them all. In a private balcony above the throne room, the princess stood alone and looked at the city below. The human had saved her people today, but she could not escape the feeling that he was hiding something far more dangerous than scars. That night, across the alien capital, rumors spread like wildfire. Tomorrow, the human would remove his helmet. Tomorrow, the truth would be revealed. And somewhere deep inside the armored warrior, something long buried began to stir. Before we continue this journey and uncover what he has been hiding, gently consider subscribing to this channel so you do not miss the next part of this story. Because tomorrow, the mask would not stay on forever. Morning light entered the alien capital slowly, as if even the sun was unsure about what would happen that day. The palace towers reflected silver and blue across the sky, but inside the royal court, the air felt heavy. News had already spread through every level of the city. The human would remove his helmet. Servants whispered in corridors. Soldiers adjusted their armor nervously, and nobles arrived earlier than usual, pretending they were not curious. In a quiet chamber far from the throne room, the armored human stood alone. He had not rested. He did not sleep the way others did. Inside his helmet, faint warning lights continued to flash. Containment seal at 89%. Neural sync unstable. Emotional suppression active. He closed his eyes behind the visor. Breathing slow, steady, controlled. Across the palace, the alien princess prepared in silence. She dismissed her advisors despite their protests. "Your Highness, humans are unpredictable," one elder warned. "He may attack when cornered," another added. "He may not even be fully human," a third whispered carefully. The princess did not answer them. She had seen him on the battlefield. There had been something different in the way he fought. Not rage, not cruelty, control. That was what disturbed her people most. Humans were known for emotion. This one felt like a storm held behind glass. When the hour arrived, the throne chamber filled quickly. Alien nobles stood in tall, curved rows, their robes glowing faintly with family symbols. Military commanders lined the sides, hands resting on their weapons. The atmosphere felt like a trial instead of a meeting. The doors opened slowly. The human entered without escort this time. No weapons, no guards, only the heavy sound of his armored boots against crystal flooring. Every head turned toward him. The crack across his helmet was more visible now, thin lines spreading like frozen lightning across black metal. He stopped at the center of the chamber. The princess descended from her throne and walked closer than any ruler had dared before. She stood only a few steps away from him. "You came without resistance," she said calmly. "I gave my word," he replied through the filtered voice. Murmurs spread again. Aliens valued honor deeply, but they did not trust human promises. "You fought for this city," the princess continued, "yet you keep your identity hidden." "My identity changes nothing," he answered. "It changes everything," she said softly. The court waited, breath held tight. One noble stepped forward boldly, his armor polished and sharp. "This is an insult," the noble declared loudly. "If he stands in this sacred hall, he must show his true form." Several others agreed, their voices rising. The human remained still. The princess raised her hand again to silence the room. "You fear what you cannot see," she said, her voice firm now. "And you cannot understand what you refuse to see." She turned back to the armored warrior. "Tell us one thing," she asked carefully. "Why do you hide your face?" The question hung in the air like a blade. For a long moment, there was no answer. Then he spoke, slower than before. "Because your people do not understand survival." The words confused many in the hall. An elder frowned. "We are one of the oldest civilizations in this galaxy," the elder argued. "We understand survival better than humans ever could." The human's helmet tilted slightly toward him. "You understand tradition," he said. "Youth understand pride. But survival requires change." The princess noticed something then, a faint pulse beneath the damaged section of his helmet. Not blue, not the same control glow as before. This was different, almost alive. Suddenly, one of the military scanners activated automatically. A sharp sound filled the chamber. Energy levels rising. Internal core instability detected. The guards reacted instantly, weapons raised. "Stand down," the princess ordered sharply. The human did not move, but beneath the armor, something was shifting. Pain, not physical pain alone, something deeper. Memory, voices from long ago. A laboratory, bright lights, cold metal tables. Human scientists arguing quietly. He will not survive the integration. He must, another voice insisted. It is the only way humanity keeps up with them. The memory faded as quickly as it appeared. Back in the throne room, tension reached its highest point. The princess stepped even closer now, close enough to see her reflection in the cracked visor. "You are not only a soldier," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "You are something more." His voice changed slightly when he answered. "More is not always better." A sudden tremor passed through the armor. The crack along the helmet widened another inch. Gasps filled the chamber. For a split second, a faint glimpse of something beneath the metal became visible. Not fully alien, not fully human, something in between. The noble stepped back instinctively. Fear moved faster than reason. The princess did not step back. Instead, she reached out slowly, her hand hovering just inches from the damaged helmet. "You stand here alone," she said softly. "Not human enough for your own kind. Not alien enough for mine." Silence followed her words. The human did not deny it. He did not confirm it either. But for the first time since entering the palace, the faint blue line across his visor dimmed slightly. And in that small change, the princess realized something important. He was not hiding his face out of arrogance. He was hiding it because once it was revealed, no one would ever see him as a simple warrior again. Outside the palace walls, unseen by those inside, distant sensors detected unfamiliar ships entering orbit, unknown signatures, rebel faction codes, watching, waiting, because whatever truth was hidden beneath that helmet, it was not just a personal secret. It was something powerful enough to shake both empires. The tremor inside the throne chamber had barely faded when the palace alarms began to echo through the crystal walls. A low, vibrating sound filled the air, not loud, but deep enough to make every noble feel it in their bones. The military commander activated his wrist display, and his expression darkened immediately. "Rebel ships have entered orbit," he announced, his voice tight. "They are requesting open combat under the ancient rite." The hall erupted into confusion. The ancient rite was not simple war. It was ritual combat, a public duel meant to decide honor, power, and truth. If accepted, it could not be refused or interfered with. The princess remained calm, but her mind moved quickly. Rebels had been quiet for years. Now, they arrived at the exact moment the human secret was about to surface. This was not coincidence. At the center of the chamber, the armored warrior stood motionless. Inside his helmet, the warning signals intensified. Containment seal at 84%. Neural strain increasing. External threat detected. He did not need the data to know what was happening. He had felt this before, the moment before chaos. The princess turned to him slowly. "They are here for you," she said quietly. He did not deny it. The rebels' leader appeared on the main projection screen that formed in the center of the hall. His armor was crimson and gold, decorated with battle scars and tribal markings. "We demand the human hybrid be brought to the arena," the rebel declared. His voice carried pride and hatred in equal measure. "He carries blood that does not belong to him." Gasps spread across the chamber. "Hybrid." The word was spoken openly now. The princess narrowed her eyes. "You speak of accusations without proof," she responded firmly. The rebel smiled coldly. "Oh, we have proof," he said. "Let him bleed in the arena, and the truth will reveal itself." The screen vanished, leaving the hall in silence again. The military commander looked to the princess. "If we refuse, they will bombard the outer districts," he warned. "If we accept, he fights alone." The princess felt the weight of the choice press against her chest. She looked at the human warrior once more. His cracked helmet reflected the floating lights above. "You knew this day would come," she said softly. "Yes," he answered. "Then you understand what they want." "They want confirmation," he replied. "Of what?" she asked carefully. "That survival requires sacrifice." Minutes later, the arena gates opened beneath the palace. It was an ancient structure carved into the planet's surface long before the current empire had risen. Thousands gathered in the upper rings, their glowing eyes fixed on the center platform. Rebel ships hovered in the sky above, watching, recording, waiting. The humans stepped into the arena without weapons, as tradition demanded. Across from him stood the rebel champion, tall and heavily armored, twin plasma blades humming in his hands. "You hide behind metal," the rebel shouted. "Let us see what bleeds beneath." The crowd roared. The princess watched from her private balcony, her hands gripping the railing tightly. She had never doubted her strength before, but now doubt crept in quietly. Not about him, about what would happen after. The signal was given. The rebel moved first, fast and aggressive. His plasma blades sliced across the air, leaving trails of green fire. The human did not draw a weapon. He dodged, movements precise, controlled, almost mechanical. The crowd reacted with confusion. Why was he not attacking? The rebel struck again, faster this time. A blade cut across the human's shoulder. Sparks exploded from the armor. The crack in the helmet widened further. Inside, the warning lights flashed violently. Containment seal at 78%. Structural breach risk critical. The human finally moved forward, not with rage, not with desperation, with calculation. He caught the rebel's wrist mid-strike and twisted sharply. The plasma blade fell to the arena floor. Gasps rippled through the stands. The rebel snarled and activated his second blade, stabbing directly toward the human's chest. This time the blade pierced deeper. It did not go fully through, but it cut enough. Red blood spilled onto the stone, bright and unmistakable. The crowd leaned forward. Human blood. The rebel smiled triumphantly. "You see," he shouted, "just flesh." But then something unexpected happened. As the human stepped back, another drop fell beside the red one. Not red, green, alien green. The arena fell into stunned silence. The rebel's expression shifted from pride to confusion. The princess felt her heart stop for a moment. The two colors mixed slowly on the stone floor, red and green together. The human's breathing grew heavier behind the helmet. He touched the damaged area on his chest briefly. Beneath the torn armor, faint light pulsed. Not blue this time, something deeper. The rebel stepped back cautiously now. "What are you?" he demanded. The human raised his head slowly. "For you," he said quietly. "I am proof." The crack across his helmet finally split wider with a sharp metallic sound. A thin section of the visor broke away and fell to the ground. The crowd inhaled sharply. Through the broken opening, a single eye became visible. It was not fully human, not fully alien. It carried both colors within it. Red at the center, green along the edge. The rebel hesitated for the first time. Fear, real fear. The human stepped forward again, ignoring the pain, ignoring the alarms screaming inside his suit. Containment seal at 69%. Core instability rising. But he did not stop. He disarmed the rebel completely within seconds, forcing him to his knees. The arena was silent except for the human's controlled breathing. Blood continued to drip onto the stone, red and green together. High above, the princess understood the truth fully now. He was not a weapon created to destroy her people. He was something far more dangerous. A bridge between two enemies. And bridges always frighten those who wanted war. In orbit above the planet, the rebel fleet adjusted their targeting systems quietly, because now the galaxy had seen what flowed beneath the metal. And once blood is revealed, it cannot be hidden again. The arena did not cheer. It did not roar. It remained silent, as if the entire city had forgotten how to breathe. On the stone floor below, red and green blood continued to mix slowly, forming a dark shade neither side had seen before. The rebel champion knelt in shock, staring at the broken section of a human's helmet. Above them, rebel warships shifted slightly in orbit, their weapons warming quietly. They had not come only to watch. They had come to confirm something, and now they had their answer. The human stood tall despite the damage to his armor. Inside his helmet, alarm screamed without pause. Containment seal at 63%. Biological integration exposed. Neural firewall weakening. Fragments of memory began to surface again, stronger this time. A sterile, white laboratory. Human officers speaking in low voices. A hologram of alien DNA rotating slowly in the air. "We cannot defeat them by strength alone," one scientist had said. "We must understand them from the inside." "He will be the first," another voice responded. "Half of both, loyal to one." Back in the present, the princess descended from her balcony and entered the arena floor herself, something no ruler had done in centuries. The crowd parted instantly. Her silver robes brushed against the stained stone as she walked toward him. Guards moved nervously behind her, unsure whether to protect her or fear what stood before her. The human turned slightly toward her. The exposed eye visible through the broken visor flickered faintly. "Not weak, not angry, but tired. You should not be here," he said quietly, "and leave my people to fear what they do not understand," she replied calmly. She stopped only a few steps away, close enough now to see beneath the damaged metal. Faint patterns moved across his skin under the broken edge of the helmet. Subtle, almost like living light beneath flesh. "You were created," she said slowly, piecing the truth together. "Yes," he answered. "Not born." "No." Murmurs spread again among the crowd. "Created." The word carried weight. Aliens believed deeply in bloodlines and ancestry. Creation without lineage felt unnatural to them. The princess looked down at the mixed blood on the ground. "Human scientists altered you," she said carefully. "They combined our DNA." "They did," he replied. "For what purpose?" she asked. "To survive." His answers were simple, but the meaning behind them was not. In orbit above, the rebel leader reappeared on every public display across the city. "You see now," he declared loudly, "this is the human strategy. They send us a weapon wearing our blood. They infiltrate our future." Fear began spreading faster than logic. The princess raised her voice sharply, silencing the public screens. "You accuse him of deception," she said firmly, "but he stood alone against your fleets. He defended this city when your own kind attacked." The rebel leader's image flickered once more before disappearing completely. He had no answer to that. The human swayed slightly as another internal surge passed through him. Containment seal at 58%. Core integration destabilizing. He knew the truth the others did not. The alien DNA within him was not only enhancement. It was a bond, a link to something older than the current empire. Long before this generation, before even the princess was born, a secret treaty had existed between early humans and a forgotten alien faction. The project had not been pure science. It had been diplomacy through biology, but the alliance had collapsed. War replaced trust, and he became a living reminder of a peace both sides had chosen to forget. "They've buried this truth," he said quietly. "Both of our peoples did." The princess felt a strange chill as she processed his words. If what he said was true, then his existence was not betrayal. It was history. History no one wanted remembered. Suddenly, a sharp pulse shot through his armor. The crack across the helmet expanded violently. Another piece of metal fell away, clattering against the arena floor. More of his face became visible now, skin marked with faint glowing lines. One human eye, one eye carrying alien depth and color. The crowd recoiled, not from horror alone, but from a realization that he was not an experiment gone wrong. He was balanced, carefully designed, almost beautiful in a way they could not describe. "You are not a monster," the princess said softly, almost to herself. "I am not fully either," he replied, "and that is what frightens them." A loud rumble echoed from the sky. Rebel ships shifted into attack formation. They had not come for ritual alone. They had come to erase what they feared. Inside the palace control room, alarms began flashing across every display. Orbital weapons charging. City shield at partial capacity. Time running out. The princess turned toward the sky briefly, then back to him. If they fire, they will kill thousands, she said quietly. They fear what you represent. I know, he answered. And what do you represent? She asked, her voice steady despite the chaos. He looked at her fully now, broken helmet hanging loosely around his face. I represent change, he said calmly, and change destroys old power. Above them, the rebel fleet locked, targeting coordinates onto the capital's central district. The arena crowd began to panic. Guards rushed into position, unsure whether to protect their ruler or prepare for evacuation. The princess stepped closer to the human hybrid, ignoring the blood on the ground, ignoring the fear around her. You said if you removed your helmet, our world would change, she whispered. It already has, he replied. And as the first beam of charged energy began forming in the sky above, one truth became impossible to ignore. The war was never only about territory or pride. It was about identity, and the identity they had buried beneath metal and silence was now standing exposed before them all. The first rebel beam never reached the city. A brilliant shield flared to life above the capital at the last second, spreading across the sky like a wall of blue fire. The blast struck it with a violent shockwave that rattled every tower and shattered windows across the outer districts. The arena floor trembled beneath their feet. Screams rose from the crowd. Panic moved faster than thought. Above, the rebel fleet adjusted position for a second strike. Inside the palace control center, officers shouted over one another. Shield capacity dropping. Orbital cannons charging. Rebel ground forces landing beyond the eastern ridge. This was no longer ritual. It was open war. In the arena, dust settled slowly around the human hybrid and the princess. The broken pieces of his helmet lay scattered near his boots. The rebel champion who had challenged him crawled backward, fear replacing arrogance. You should not exist, the rebel muttered weakly. The human did not answer him. His exposed face lifted toward the burning sky. He could feel it, not just the enemy ships, but something deeper inside his own body reacting to the chaos above. Containment seal at 47%. Core integration unlocking secondary sequence. He had always known there was a second layer to his design, a failsafe, or perhaps a final weapon, but he had never allowed it to activate. The princess saw the change in him. The faint, glowing patterns beneath his skin brightened, spreading across his neck and jaw like living veins of light. What is happening? She asked quietly. They designed me for planetary defense, he replied, not just combat. Before she could ask more, a violent explosion tore through the outer wall of the arena. Rebel drop ships crashed into the structure, spilling armored fighters onto the stone floor. Their leader stepped through the smoke personally this time, his crimson armor reflecting the chaos. You see what your mercy has done, he shouted at the princess. You defend the weapon that will replace you. The princess stood tall despite the danger. He is not replacing anyone, she answered firmly. He is protecting this world. The rebel laughed harshly. Protection, he said, or control. He raised his weapon toward the hybrid. But before he could fire, the human moved, not with simple speed, but with something far beyond what the crowd had seen before. His armor split open along precise lines, sections folding away from his body as if responding to hidden commands. The remaining pieces of the helmet detached completely and fell. For the first time, he stood fully unmasked before thousands. There was no roar, no unified reaction, only silence thick enough to suffocate. His face was not monstrous. It was strong, sharp, balanced between two worlds. One eye human, filled with controlled emotion. The other carrying the depth and color of alien royalty, ancient and intelligent. Across his skin, glowing patterns formed a faint crown-like shape along his temple. The princess realized the terrible truth in that moment. This was not random alien DNA. This was royal lineage, from a forgotten branch of her own bloodline. The rebel leader saw it too. His confidence cracked instantly. "You carry forbidden blood," he hissed. "Yes," the hybrid answered calmly. "Buried to protect fragile power." The rebel fired anyway. Energy bolts struck the hybrid directly, but instead of burning through flesh, they were absorbed into the glowing lines beneath his skin. The light intensified. Containment seal at 35%. Planetary defense core unlocked. Above the arena, something extraordinary happened. The shield surrounding the capital brightened and expanded, responding not to palace commands, but to him. The connection between his altered DNA and ancient alien defense systems activated fully. He was not only a soldier, he was a living key. The rebel fleet in orbit suddenly lost targeting control. Their weapons systems flickered and failed. Across the city, defense towers realigned automatically, no longer responding to military officers, but to the hybrid standing exposed in the arena. The rebel leader stepped back in disbelief. "You were built to control our empire," he accused. "No," the hybrid said firmly. "I was built to save both of them." He extended his hand slightly, not in attack, but in command. High above, several rebel ships were disabled instantly, their engines shutting down as if the sky itself rejected them. The crowd in the arena began to understand. He was not a weapon aimed at them. He was a safeguard designed long ago, when peace still seemed possible. The princess moved beside him openly now. She did not hide behind guards. She did not step away from his light. "You stand with my people," she declared loudly, her voice carrying across the arena, "and I stand with you." The rebel leader looked around at his own forces, now uncertain, their ships powerless above. Fear shifted sides. "You cannot erase what he is," the rebel warned the princess. "I do not intend to," she replied calmly. Another explosion shook the distant horizon. Rebel reinforcements were still approaching. This battle was not finished, but something had changed forever. The hybrid looked down briefly at the blood still staining the arena floor, red and green mixed together. Then he looked up at the sky he had just shielded. For the first time, there was no helmet to hide behind, no mask to protect him from judgment, only truth. And truth, once revealed, could never return as silence. The arena was no longer only a battlefield. It had become a dividing line between fear and choice. Above the capital, disabled rebel ships drifted helplessly, their engines silent, their weapons dark. The city shield shimmered brighter than ever before, connected directly to the hybrid who stood unmasked at its center. Alien citizens stared at him not with simple fear now, but with confusion. He had protected them. He had revealed forbidden blood. He had proven the rebels right and wrong at the same time. The princess stood beside him without hesitation, her silver robes stained lightly with dust from the explosion. She could feel the tension around her. Advisors whispering, commanders uncertain, nobles calculating what this meant for their power. "You should step back, Your Highness," one general urged quietly from behind. "He is unstable." As if summoned by the word, the glowing patterns beneath the hybrid skin flickered sharply. Containment seal at 28%. Core output exceeding safe limit. He felt it clearly now. The deeper layer of his design was not meant to remain active long. He was absorbing massive energy from the city's defense grid, holding it steady through his altered biology. If he lost control, the shield would collapse. Or worse, overload. The princess looked directly into his mismatched eyes. "You are in pain," she said softly. "Yes," he answered without pride. "Then release it," she whispered. "I cannot," he replied. "If I disconnect, the shield fails." Behind them, rebel ground forces regrouped along the broken arena walls, unsure whether to advance or retreat. Their leader, wounded but still alive, glared at the princess with open accusation. "You bind your empire's fate to a creation," he shouted. "You trust something grown in a laboratory." The princess turned toward him slowly. "My empire is not built on fear of difference," she declared, her voice rising clearly across the arena. It is built on strength, and strength is not weakened by truth. The crowd reacted to her words, not with loud cheers, but with shifting energy. Something fragile began to form. Hope. The hybrid's breathing grew heavier as another surge passed through him. Containment seal at 22%. Core synchronization unstable. Memories flooded back stronger than ever. Not only the laboratory, but moments after, human commanders arguing over him. Some calling him a necessary evolution, others calling him a mistake. He is too connected, one officer had warned. If the aliens ever discover the royal gene integration, it will destabilize both governments. He must remain hidden, another had insisted. He is not a diplomat. He is insurance. Standing in the arena now, exposed before thousands, the hybrid realized something simple and painful. He had never been meant to live openly. He had been designed to exist in shadows, to activate only in crisis, to die quietly once his function ended. But the princess had stepped forward, and that single choice had changed everything. She moved even closer to him now, ignoring the faint heat radiating from his skin. "You were never insurance," she said firmly, as if she could read his thoughts. "You were possibility." The rebel leader fired one final desperate shot toward them. A narrow beam aimed directly at the hybrid's exposed face. The princess reacted without thinking, stepping between them. The beam struck the shield field surrounding his body instead, dispersing into harmless light. Gasps spread across the arena. She had not stepped back. She had stepped forward. The rebel forces hesitated fully now. Their narrative was collapsing in real time. This was not an invasion disguised as unity. This was protection chosen freely. Above the planet, the disabled rebel ships began receiving override signals from distant sectors. More fleets were coming. This conflict was expanding beyond ritual and rebellion. It was becoming civil war. The hybrid felt the shield grid pulse violently as incoming fleets attempted to breach orbital defenses. Containment seal at 16%. Emergency protocol imminent. If he remained connected much longer, his biological systems would begin to fail permanently. The princess saw the flicker of strain in his eyes. "Tell me the truth," she said urgently. "What happens if you continue?" "I burn out," he replied calmly. "And the shield," she pressed. "It holds," he answered. The simplicity of his response struck her harder than any weapon. He had been built to sacrifice without hesitation, to calculate survival in percentages and outcomes. But she was not calculating. She was choosing. "You are not dying today," she said firmly. He almost smiled at that, a faint, human expression breaking through the alien glow. "That is not entirely your decision," he said quietly. She stepped onto the central platform beside him, raising her voice to the entire arena. "Hear me," she declared. "This being carries the blood of our past and the courage of humanity. He is not a weapon against us. He is proof that we were once capable of trust." Silence followed her words, but it was no longer fearful silence. It was listening silence. Even the rebel leader paused, wounded pride battling visible doubt. The hybrid felt something unexpected within his unstable core. Not just energy, not just programming. Emotion, not suppressed, not filtered, but raw. For the first time since his creation, someone had chosen him not as a tool, but as a person. Containment seal at 12%. Emergency protocol activated. Across the sky, the approaching fleets crossed into firing range. This was no longer about one arena or one city. This was about the future of two civilizations. And standing unmasked before them all, glowing with unstable power and impossible heritage, he understood the final truth clearly. The princess had not stepped back from him. Now the galaxy would have to decide whether it would step back from change or step forward into it. The sky above the capital was no longer red from battle. It burned white with the light of approaching fleets. Dozens of warships exited faster than light travel at the edge of the system, their engines cutting through space like blades. Some carried the symbol of the rebel faction. Others bore the official mark of the alien High Council. And further behind them, smaller but unmistakable, human warships emerged as well. The conflict had grown beyond one planet. It was now being watched by the galaxy. In the arena, wind rushed across broken stone as the shield dome shimmered violently overhead. The hybrid stood at the center, unmasked, glowing patterns across his skin pulsing brighter with each incoming energy surge. Containment seal at 8%. Core overload imminent. He felt the grid of planetary defense systems running through him like fire through veins. Satellites, shield towers, orbital cannons, all responding to his altered DNA. He was not simply controlling them. He was becoming part of them. The princess stood at his side, her hand close to his arm, but not touching. She understood now that if she tried to physically pull him away, the shield might collapse instantly. Above them, the first coordinated strike from the approaching fleets began charging. Multiple vessels aligned their cannons toward the capital. They did not care about ritual anymore. They wanted certainty, and certainty meant destruction. Across every public channel in the system, the rebel leader transmitted a final message. "Behold what your princess defends," he declared, a human-alien construct designed to replace rulers with engineered obedience. He is not unity. He is control. The princess activated her own transmission instantly, overriding his signal. The entire galaxy saw her standing beside the hybrid, unarmed, unafraid. "This is not control," she said clearly. "This is survival through trust. You fear him because he does not fit your old definitions. But the future will not ask for permission from tradition." Her words spread across systems. Human admirals watched in silence from their bridges. Alien council members argued in emergency chambers. Rebel captains hesitated at their firing controls. In the arena, the hybrid felt his vision blur slightly as another surge passed through him. Containment seal at 5%. Neural interface critical. If the next fleet volley struck the shield at full strength, the energy feedback would tear through his body. He understood the math clearly. He could maintain the shield long enough to absorb one full strike. Maybe two. After that, his core would collapse. The princess sensed the shift in his breathing. "You are calculating your death again," she said quietly. "I am calculating outcomes," he replied calmly. "Then calculate this," she answered. "You are not alone anymore." At that moment, something unexpected happened. From orbit, the human fleet altered course. Instead of targeting the alien capital, they moved into defensive formation, positioning themselves between the incoming rebel forces and the planet. A human admiral transmitted a short message across open channels. "He is ours," the admiral said, "and he stands for peace." The message was simple but powerful. The rebel fleet hesitated further. Their narrative was collapsing. The hybrid was not an invasion. He was proof that cooperation had already begun. The High Council ships shifted formation as well. Sensors scanning him in real time. They detected the ancient royal genetic markers buried within his DNA. Markers long erased from official records. Markers tied to a lost era of shared exploration between early aliens and humans. The truth they had buried was now visible to all. In the arena, the first coordinated fleet strike finally fired. A wave of concentrated energy descended toward the shield like a falling star. The hybrid closed his eyes briefly and opened himself fully to the defense grid. The impact shook the planet. Mountains trembled in the distance. The shield flared brighter than the sun. Pain exploded through his body. Containment seal at 2%. Core fracture beginning. The princess stepped closer, her hand finally gripping his arm despite the heat. "You are not a weapon," she whispered fiercely. "You are our bridge." He felt her words cut through the noise inside his mind. Not programming, not design, choice. He had always followed calculations. But this time, he chose differently. Instead of absorbing the full force alone, he redirected it. Through the ancient royal markers in his DNA, he unlocked a forgotten command within the planetary grid. Energy split across the system, distributed evenly to orbital satellites and defense towers. The shield stabilized. The fleets above lost targeting synchronization as the system reconfigured itself under new authority. His authority, not as a hidden weapon, but as recognized heir to a buried alliance. The rebel ships' cannons powered down one by one, their crews staring at data that confirmed what they could no longer deny. He was not an outsider controlling the Empire. He was part of its forgotten foundation. The glow across his skin dimmed slowly as the energy flow balanced across the system. Containment seal at 1%, core stabilized at minimal output. He remained standing barely, but alive. Above the planet, human and alien fleets now faced each other in uneasy alignment rather than open hostility. In the arena, silence returned once more. But this silence was different from before. It was not fear, it was recognition. The princess stepped forward, raising her voice one final time. "Let the galaxy witness," she declared. "He stands unmasked, not as conquest, not as experiment, but as union." The hybrid looked across the horizon, across fleets, across worlds watching him. "For years I was hidden," he said calmly, his voice now unfiltered and clear. "Not because I was shameful, but because truth frightens power." He paused, steady despite exhaustion. "I was never your weapon," he continued. "I was your future." No explosion followed his words. No dramatic strike. Only a slow lowering of weapons across the sky. Ships drifting into ceasefire formation. A war halted not by destruction, but by revelation. Standing there without armor, without helmet, without secrecy, he finally understood something simple. He had not been built to end a war. He had been built to survive one. And survival did not mean domination. It meant adaptation. It meant stepping forward when others stepped back. The princess remained at his side as medics approached cautiously. The arena floor still carried the stain of red and green blood mixed together, a mark that would not be erased easily. Above them, fleets began transmitting diplomatic requests instead of threats. The galaxy had seen what both empires try to bury, and once truth stands unmasked before the stars, it cannot be hidden again.